Okay, well, it looks like it's time for the Gospel of Luke. And we have, let's see, chapter 19 to deal with. I was just speculating a bit a moment ago as to what to do after we do the Gospel of John, which I'm looking forward to. That's really going to be fun. And I was thinking maybe the Gospel of Thomas and then the Sufi sayings of Jesus. Unless I decide to do those on the Gnostic Sabbath. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. But maybe you can give me some reactions to that proposal. As you know, this Saturday, coming up pretty soon, I'm going to be on Gnostic Sabbath at 4 p.m. I'm going to be doing reading you a sermon from some years ago called the Gnostic Ministry, which was an ordination sermon for a guy who was becoming a priest in this tiny Gnostic group. And speaking of Gnostic groups, I don't know if I should even mention this, but who can resist? There was this weird question the other day, excuse me, I think on the Bible Geek, where somebody asked about Pope Gregory pardoning Mary Magdalene, needless to say, many centuries after she existed, if she did, and something about the thing with Jesus and the young man in the Garden of Gethsemane. And I thought this sounded a bit suspicious, and putting two and two together, I soon found out actually, that this is a fellow whose name shall go unmentioned, who runs a kind of strange Gnostic Satanist group that, among other things, okays child molestation. And I knew something was wrong, but I'm glad I pretty much dispensed with that fast. There's all kinds, man. But anyway, Luke 19. He entered Jericho and was passing through, and there was a man named Zacchaeus, whose name bears a suspicious resemblance to the Semitic word for charity or almsgiving. Hint, hint. He was a chief tax collector and rich. And of course, he was rich because he was a tax collector, right? Anyway, verse 3, and he sought to see who Jesus was, but could not on account of the crowd, because he was small of stature. Now, I think this means Zacchaeus, but somebody pointed out it's possible it means that Jesus was short, and that's why this guy couldn't see him over the heads of the crowd. I suspect it's Zacchaeus, but who knows? Verse 4, so he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured, he's gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. I mean, these are the people that lined up to see him, presumably fans. But this, what? What's he doing? You can tell, obviously, can't you, that this is a sort of a much embellished version of Jesus meeting with the tax collectors. And they say, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? Well, this is spun out with the typical Lucan style. He's going to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. Verse 8, and Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. Does he mean I'm doing that right now? I'm repenting? Could be. But I kind of think that this is a rejoinder to what the crowd is saying. He said, wait just a second. That's not, I'm not such a sinner as you folks think. I mean, there's always this natural antipathy toward tax collectors, right? So they already have this guy judged. He says, wait a minute, there's more to this than you know. I give half of my property to the poor, and if I've defrauded anybody, and I think here that means if I find I goofed and overcharged somebody. Hey, wait a minute! How come? What is this? Where does this figure come from? I don't get nearly the income to justify this. Oh my God, you're right. And so he then says, look, I'm paying you back what I overcharged you. And how does 4 times the amount sound to you? So this guy has gone way out of his ordinary zone to more than make amends. And verse 9, and Jesus said to him, not to them, interestingly, today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. He is one like Abraham, in other words. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. So this is another one of these things where someone is making a comment. It does refer to Jesus here, but it's someone is applying the title to him. And so it's like earlier in Luke, when the Samaritan village tells him to get lost, and the disciples say, well, how dare they? Don't they know who you are? Lord, would you like us to call down fire from heaven to incinerate these bastards like Elijah did? You don't know what we're all about. The Son of Man came not to destroy men's lives, but to save them. Well, again, he's talking about him, but who's the he? I think it's Luke taking a statement about Jesus and his mission and putting it into the mouth of Jesus. And this is really the same one, basically. And so it's somebody's retrospective estimate, just like in the Gospel of John, chapter 3, maybe the most famous New Testament passage of all. For God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, so that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. That there are no quotation marks in the original. They didn't have them then. And so some scholars, they have to decide where to put quotation marks in their translation, right? So some of them put it after this whole statement, implying that John is telling you Jesus said all of this, but others realize that seems kind of overkill, and that probably that this is overtly supposed to be a comment by the evangelist. He's saying, well, yeah, this is so, this dialogue with Nicodemus. Why? Well, because God so loved the world, etc. He sent his Son, and this is why. And so I think it's the same thing here. You've got a statement about Jesus rather than by him. And it comes from a period where this has become a Christological title for Jesus. Okay, verse 11, as they heard these things, now that implies there's a real connection here, that for some reason it seemed appropriate to inject this parable, but that is not really clear to me. I think it's an artificial connection, just a transition. As they heard these things, he proceeded to tell a parable, because he was near to Jerusalem, and because they supposed that the kingdom of God was to appear immediately. This is the one I was talking about the other day and hunting for frantically, not knowing it was like in the next chapter. Right? Okay. So here again, Luke pre-interprets it. Just so you know, going in, what I think this parable is about Here's the punchline. Now let's get to the story. Let's see. He said, therefore, a nobleman went into a far country to receive kingly power, or a kingdom, literally. That's what it means. And then return, calling 10 of his servants. Now we got the parable of the talents, but changed up so that it's now the parable of the minas, which is a different currency. But Luke has changed that, or perhaps just has a different version than the one Matthew used, but it's recognizably the same parable. And he has inserted it into a different one, with the result of there's being a little confusion anyway, because both of them involved a nobleman, a landlord, a boss, whatever, going far away on a trip and entrusting his servants to handle things till he gets back. Calling 10 of his servants, he gave them 10 pounds, or literally minas. And he said to them, trade with these till I come, till I return. But now we're back to the first part of the parable. But his citizens hated him and sent an embassy after him, saying, we do not want this man to reign over us. When he returned, having received the kingly power, he commanded these servants to whom he had given the money to be called to him, that he might know what they had gained by trading. The first came before him, saying, Lord, your pound has made 10 pounds more. And he said to him, well done, good servant, because you have been faithful in a very little, you shall have authority over 10 cities. Remember, in the Matthean version, he gives him 10 pounds money. But here, no, I'm making you a deputy. And at the same time, and the second came, saying, Lord, your pound is made 5 pounds. And he said to him, and you are to be over 5 cities. Then another came, saying, Lord, here is your pound, which I kept laid away in a napkin. Remember, he buried it in the ground in the Matthean version. For I was afraid of you, because you are a severe man. You take up what you did not lay down and reap what you did not sow. In other words, you appropriated the winnings of others who won in poker or something, and you appropriate the crops of those who worked for him. You didn't, but you managed to seize it, because the guy's already some kind of a ruler, right? But he doesn't have, under the authority of Rome, but he wants the title king, because this is based on Archelaus, the son of Herod the Great, to whom this happened, really. He goes to Rome, and I think is it Caligula or whoever the Caesar was, said, yeah, sure, from now on you're King Archelaus. And he was a real rough customer. So, yeah, it's very easy to imagine that his subjects would say, no, please don't give this guy even more authority. He abuses it, believe me. Well, okay. Yeah, in 22, he said to him, I will condemn you out of your own mouth, you wicked servant. You knew that I was a severe man, taking up what I did not lay down and reaping what I did not sow. Why then did you not put my money into the bank, and at my coming I should have collected it with interest? Would a king need to be doing that? No, this is a vestige of the parable of the talents again. And he said to those who stood by, take the pound from him and give it to him who has the 10 pounds. And they said to him, Lord, he already has 10 pounds. Then I tell you, who's supposed to be saying this? Sounds like it's Jesus, but because it's in the nature of a proverb, but the king could have been quoting one. I tell you that to everyone who has will more be given, but to him who has not, even what he has will be taken away. So if you've got the knack, you stand to make a lot of money. But if you're clueless, forget it. You're gonna lose what little you have. Um, doesn't really seem to me even to belong even in the original. What have you done with your life thing? 27. But as for these enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slay them before me. In other words, I got to see this. This will be the night's entertainment. It's pretty brutal. Now let's just go back over this to reconstruct the original parable that Luke had and chopped up like Mark and Sandwich style to intersperse it with the parable of the talents, essentially. Okay, let's go back to verse 12. A nobleman went into a far country to receive kingly power and then return. And then 14, but his citizens hated him and sent an embassy after him, saying, "We do not want this man to reign over us." When he returned, having received the kingly power, then jump down to 27. As for these enemies of mine who did not want me to reign over them, bring them here and slay them before me. So that's pretty short and sweet, or short and bitter, I guess you could say. And that is what he has grafted on to a version of the parable of the talents, where it's a businessman, a nobleman or a landlord or something who is going away on a business trip, and he's going to be away and assigns these duties to his servants to kind of gauge how good a businessman they might be, so he'll know whether to elevate them on his staff. But here, for some reason, he rather than just using the short version I just read, he has combined it with this one, even though the point of the two is quite different. And nonetheless, but how about the one based on Archelaus, who was a tyrant? Remember when Joseph in Matthew, the angel tells him, okay, Herod the Great is dead, you can go back home. He's not going to be searching for your son anymore. And so Joseph said, okay, great. And he calls the moving van and all that. But then he hears that Archelaus, the son of Herod the Great, essentially a Hunter Biden, hey, wait a minute. I don't want to get near this guy. Are you sure it's safe? And the angel says, okay, you got a point. Why don't you move up to Nazareth? They'll never find you there. He knew Archelaus was a vicious tyrant like his dad was. And, let's see. So, that's the historical Archelaus for sure. And so for some reason, he has put them both in here. Now, some people lose sleep over the fact that they say, well, and they rightly say this much, that this is Luke trying to say, look, you shouldn't expect the soon coming of Jesus again, because after all, I mean, they've been disappointed. We had these statements you read in Mark, this generation will not pass away. Some standing here will not taste death until it happens. Didn't happen. And so Luke here and in chapter 17, look, the kingdom of God is not the kind of thing that you can calculate by a list of signs like you find in Mark 13. No. It's an interior thing. The kingdom of God is within you. So stop watching the skies, to paraphrase a line from The Thing. Right. And then in Acts 1:6, Lord, at this time you're going to restore independence to Israel. He says, look, that's not for you to know. Just get busy spreading the gospel. Well, this is the other one in the series. The nobleman to become king, just like Jesus is going to heaven to be enthroned to the right hand of God, king, right? But it's a long trip up there to heaven. And it's going to take a long time. So don't worry, he will show up. And when he does, he will destroy his enemies, presumably those who are persecuting Christians, because Luke has been talking about that division within the family. When the persecutors come to the door and say, any Christians here? Oh, not me, sir. But my son and his wife are. Take them away. I can afford to feed them anyway. And that kind of thing, right? He says that these people will receive judgment when he does come. So people that are very soft-hearted, that's a good thing they are, say, what is Jesus talking about, executing his enemies? Well, Luke is, that's for sure, right? So not everybody in the New Testament attained the vantage point of the author of Colossians, who, and perhaps even First Corinthians, who said that the righteous would be raised, but only them, or everybody will be. Everyone will be fulfilled in Christ at the end. But they figured, look, you're talking about persecuting villains. Persecutors, villains who are going to get theirs. Don't you want them to? Let's see. Okay. So there's that persistent Lucan theme that hold it on the eschatological fervor. You know, we've been embarrassed by it too many times. And of course, nobody ever gets this lesson, right? Throughout all of Christian history, it's been one embarrassment after another. Castro was the Antichrist. Get ready. Get out of here. Anyway. Okay, now the triumphal entry. In verse 28, when he had said this, he went on ahead going up to Jerusalem. Okay, this whole central section has been leading up to this, and it's been the vehicle for a bunch of parallels to the content of Deuteronomy. Well, now that's ending, right? 29, when he drew near to Bethphage and Bethany at the mount that is called Olivet, the Mount of Olives, right? He sent two of the disciples, saying, go into the village opposite, where on entering you will find a colt tied on which no one has ever yet sat. Untie it and bring it here. Now, let me just repeat what I know I've said a million times. Why does it have to be a brand new colt without any mileage on it? You know, why the brand new car? Does it have that new donkey smell that you sniff in the dealership, right? Why is that? Well, it's harking back to the Ark of the Covenant when the Philistines captured it, but then God started sending plagues on them, and they surmised that must be what's happening. This can't be an accident, that we're getting bubonic plague and mice are destroying our grain. It must be the God of the Hebrews wanting his ark back. For God's sake, send it to them. And how do they do that? Well, as a show of respect, they put it on an ox cart that's never been used, drawn by a couple of oxen. that have never been put to work. It's like only the brand new best stuff for this God we're trying to placate. Same thing here. You're talking about the Son of God here. You want the best for him, not some used donkey. So, okay, 31. If anyone asks you, why are you untying it? You shall say this, the Lord has need of it. And they'll let you go, right? It sort of compresses the narrative a bit. So those who were sent went away and found it as he had told them. And as they were untying the colt, its owner said to them, why are you untying the colt? Now, what do you think you're doing? Let's see. And they said, the Lord has need of it. Probably think they're going to call the cops. Of course, there weren't any cops in those days. So they let him do it, right? Oh, well, in that case, had Jesus made some prior arrangement with these guys? Well, these are the disciples who would have arranged it. Maybe it's just he's clairvoyant as a prophet. He knows what's going to happen. And 35, and they brought it to Jesus, and throwing their garments on the colt as a saddle, right, they set Jesus upon it. And as they rode along, they spread their garments on the road. Not paved, obviously. Don't want to, be bouncing them around. Want to make a dignified entrance. 37, as he was now drawing near at the descent of the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all the mighty works that they had seen. So we're not just talking about the disciples, the 12, but all the followers of Jesus who have flocked to him after seeing these miracles. 38, they're saying, blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Are they talking about Jesus? I think so, but technically they wouldn't have to be. Luke has altered the quote Mark had from Psalm 118, which was part of an entrance liturgy for pilgrims to chant as they were entering Jerusalem for the 3 feasts every year. But there it just says, blessed is he, that is whoever comes in the name of the Lord, on religious pilgrimage. But the fact that he says, blessed is the King, I think Matthew had him say, blessed is the kingdom of our father David that is coming. Well, Jews held the idea that whenever the Messiah showed up, it would probably be during Passover. And it was, and so there and here, they may just be saying, oh, the kingdom is at hand. Blessed be the King, not necessarily Jesus, but the Messiah when he does come. Yet, I do think he intends Jesus, because if they were only saying, next year in Jerusalem with the Messiah, if that's all they were saying, you wouldn't have the reaction you do from the Pharisees in 39. And some of the Pharisees in the multitude, they're in the crowd. What, the crowd of disciples? More likely the crowd of people who were there for the feast. They said to him, teacher, rebuke your disciples. He answered, I tell you, if these were silent, the very stones would cry out. What is it that they think is worthy of a rebuke? Well, apparently this ascription to Jesus of the title King. I say, what are you trying to start a revolt here? And you claim to be the prophesied king? Surely you don't mean that. You don't think that, but they do. Why don't you tell them, just like Jesus did with the rich young ruler? He says, a good teacher, what must I stop right there? Why are you calling me good? Only God is good. Well, maybe they're expecting the same sort of humility there. You're going to let him praise you in such terms? Surely that's unbecoming. Teacher, right? And when he says, well, look, it's moot. If I did tell him to knock it off, they wouldn't do it. Um, and if they were, then it has to be said. Even the rocks would cry out. Now, of course, he's not taking that literally; it's metaphorical. But he's saying you can't stop it. It's gonna be said any way you cut it. And 41, and when he drew near and saw the city, he wept over it, saying, would that even today you knew the things that make for peace. Technically it's not too late, but still you're blind to the situation. But now they are hid from your eyes, the things you could have done to secure peace. For the days shall come upon you when your enemies will cast up a bank about you, as a siege, right? And surround you and hem you in on every side and dash you to the ground, you and your children uh, within you, and they will not leave one stone. Your population within the city means, right? And they will not leave one stone upon another in you, because you did not know the time of your visitation. But you didn't realize the significance of this visit of mine. I am here to offer you a course of peace with Rome. But no, you wouldn't have it. Could he be referring to the business about the blessed be the king who is coming? Maybe he says that the Pharisees are right. This is not the way to pursue peace with the occupying power. You're bringing it on. After all, isn't it this that makes Caiaphas in the Gospel of John say, what are we going to do about this guy? If he keeps going the way he is, the whole world will follow him. And then you know what'll happen, right? Rome will come and destroy our city and our place, the holy place, the temple. I would say it's a better move to get rid of this guy. I mean, have him killed? Well, it's better than having the whole nation die at the hands of Rome. So is Jesus sort of agreeing with that? That's not wise, people. 45, and he entered the temple and began to drive out those who sold. Again, sold what? Souvenirs, sunglasses, postcards. I'm in the temple, wish you were here. Is that what he's talking about? No, of course. He means buying sacrificial animals that were inspected by the priests so you wouldn't get turned away. Look, this thing has a broken leg. Didn't you notice? You can't offer this to God. Oh, no, it must have happened right outside. Well, I guess I can't make the offering. Oh, yes, you can, because we've got government inspected animals right here. And of course, people knowing that they were available would no longer bring their own livestock. But that's what's his name? Bruce Chilton makes a big deal out of this appropriately. The issue is you're alienating the offerer from the sacrifice. It's no longer really something of his that is being sacrificed. You're just buying one, and that's not really the spirit of the thing. So they're there to facilitate sacrifice, they figure. And but he's kicking them out. 46, saying to them, it is written in Isaiah, my house shall be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. That's from Jeremiah, where he says, what is God's, I think he has God saying, has my house become to you no more than a robber's den? Where you get together and plot jobs and divide the loot once. Is that all that's going on here? Oh, good. God, I'm closing the joint down. Okay, so that is a shortened version of it, probably because Luke has an apologetic interest. He does not like portraying Jesus as someone who could get in trouble with the authorities. But if he doesn't have something like this, there's no reason in Roman eyes for Jesus to be crucified, and the story has to take that route. 47, and he was teaching daily in the temple. The chief priests and the scribes and the principal men of the people sought to destroy him. And there's the robber's den reference. They're getting together to scheme, how are we going to get rid of this guy before it's too late? But they did not find anything they could do, for all the people hung upon his words. And then we're going to see some examples in the next chapter. But you see, it's like we're really in a bind here because he is dangerous, right? And but what are they going to do if they arrest him? Come along with us, Jesus. The crowd is saying, hey, wait a second. This guy is the prophet of God. You can't take him away. And there may be a nasty scene, namely a lynch mob. And that's what in Mark and Matthew it explicitly says. There'll be a riot if we arrest him publicly. We're going to have to come up with some other means, and that's where Judas comes in, right? But we'll pursue that next time. Let's look at some questions here, and if possible, we'll look at a few answers. It's time for Stump the Geek. And, oh man, a bunch of questions, I think, right? Yeah. Let's see. Grandpa, oh boy. Pet Muir, love Dr. Price's exposition of the Bible. Me too. Thank you, Pat. Sure do appreciate that. And by the way, that's all I'm doing, right? I'm sometimes I appear to be preaching and exhorting, but that's kind of with the territory, right? I mean, that's what's going on in the text, and so to explain it, I have to, kind of act the role. Richard says, I am puzzled to why Jesus' parents are in panic mode when they can't find Jesus. In the Middle East, the boys are much more mature than in the northern nations. Jesus' parents would have known that. Yeah, but this isn't history. This is this is a borrowing from one of these crazy infancy gospels, though Luke saw fit to borrow it because it's not totally crazy like a bunch of them are, but it has in common with the various things you find in the infancy gospel of Thomas or of Matthew or of James. There were a bunch of them. You have this common motif that Jesus is contrasted with his parents, who are stupid mortals, whereas he, even as a youth, has total wisdom, adult wisdom and beyond. He knows more than the adults. And so naturally, they say, they're depicted as stupid and negligent, 3 days after the pilgrimage, and they haven't seen Jesus during the whole trip back. And finally, one of them says, have you seen Jesus lately? Oh, yeah, Jesus. Yeah, our son, right? No, I haven't. I thought maybe he was with you. Well, you've been with me. You know he wasn't. Gee, I guess you're right. And so they tell the rest of the party, look, you go on ahead. We're going to go back and see if we can find him. I mean, holy mackerel, the Keystone Cops. It's purposeful. You say, wouldn't they be Uh, I mean, aren't they being negligent and bad parents? Well, yes, because the point is to highlight the wisdom of Jesus, the divine youngster. He's like bar mitzvah age here, pretty much. He's 12, but still he's a kid, and they're looking through the video game parlors and the comic book stores and all these things. Where would a kid be? And finally, they say, well, let's just go to the temple and pray that God will protect him. And then they go in there and they say, look, there he is. He's trading halakhic opinions with the scribes over how to interpret this and that law from the Torah. I don't even know any of the laws that are in the Torah. How does he get this knowledge? Well, that's because he's a divine being, right? And so when they say, son, what are you doing? How come you treated this way? Treated us this way? You had us driven to distraction with worry. And Jesus is sort of like Mr. Spock. He says, well, why? I mean, where else? You had to look for me? Where'd you think I'd be? Of course, I'm in my Father's house. I'm about his business. And they still don't get it, but he says, okay, to the scribes, see you fellas in a few years, but now I got to go home for some milk and cookies. And so he submits to them without a peep and goes with them. He isn't that polite in some of the other ones, right? Even in the one in John, which is also a piece of the infancy gospel tradition. When he goes with his mom, and John has added the disciples because he's putting it in a later context, they're at the table at a wedding reception, and Mary is told, they're out of wine. We're in trouble. So she turns to Jesus, and who's probably sitting there reading the scriptures or something. And he said, well, son, you heard that, right? They're out of wine, hint, hint. And he says, woman, what concern is that of mine? My hour has not yet come. I'm going to be on stage, but not now. What? What am I, a vintner? Am I a bartender or something? And she knows he'll come around because he always has before, right? Even though John goes on to say this, the first of his miracles he performed in Cana of Galilee, and the disciples saw his glory. No, in the original, this is by no means the first. He does stuff like this all the time. Gets this inept carpenter father out of a jam by correcting his work and stuff like that. But she says, look, I know him. He'll do something about it. And no doubt the steward of the feast is saying, what's he going to do? So Jesus says, all right. Do you see those big, huge water jars over there that you have filled with water for ablutions, ritual washings before you eat and so on? Tell you what, go ladle some of it out and see what it is. Okay. And he drinks it. What? This isn't water. It's white wine. And it's the better than the other stuff we gave him. And he goes to the steward of the feast and says, hey, look, we found some after all. I got to hand it to you. Most people serve the good stuff first, and then when people get tipsy, they bring out the cheap bottles. But you've saved the best until now, thanks to that little old winemaker, Jesus. Right, so he saves the day for a trivial situation brought on by the stupidity of adult mortals. It's the same sort of thing, and he's irritated at his mother. Mom, leave me out of this. And it's just like, the ones where Jesus is brought to a tutor and they try teaching him the alphabet. He already knows about the Sephiroth and all this. And they say, listen, kid, don't smart mouth me, and rap him on the knuckles with a ruler, whereupon he kills him. Stuff like that. I mean, there are loads of these things, and it's always the same. The adults are idiots. What fools these mortals be. But Jesus is the divine child. And so that's what's going on in this Luke story, right? It didn't happen. It's just another one of these legends. So, that really explains the unreality of the whole thing, including the aspect of it you mentioned. Is it implausible? You bet it is. It's almost supposed to be. Let's see. Let's see. Uh, hmm. Dirk says it's amazing how hard it is for some people to stop setting dates for Christ's return. I can remember a few of them in my lifetime. And you wonder, are all these people oblivious of the history of this kind of silliness? Uh, and of course, that's the big problem with climate change hysterics, right? Oh, the world's going to end in 12 years. The ice caps will have melted. Get out of here. What are you, Jehovah's Witnesses? All the date setting and the bogus prescriptions and predictions. It's the same thing. Uh, by the way, you needn't send me climate change data. I think that stuff is bogus, but it's not even our topic, really. Couldn't resist invoking the parallel, though. Graham Pong says, why did Jesus tell his disciples to be horse thieves? Well, that's why I say it sort of sounds like he has arrangements already. But the ones he sends are the ones who would have made the arrangements, right? How's he going to send a message to do this? It seems like they're just saying, well, he's clairvoyant. He's a prophet. He's the son of God. He knows what's going to happen. Maybe God told him that he had arranged it. So it's part of the mysterious, miraculous character of this. Because again, they're highlighting the fact that you wouldn't be able to get away with this unless it was the will of God. What do you think of doing, untying that donkey? Oh, the Lord has need of it. Oh, the Lord has need of it, eh? Well, take it with our compliments. And then, after they leave, the one guy saying to the other, wasn't there a donkey tied up there a minute ago? I wonder what happened to it. Anyway, right. Dirk, I've heard more than one sermon where the rocks crying out was taken very seriously. Oh boy. You mean they actually thought, there's our pal, Ray. Let's see, that they started yelling, Adrian, Rocky, that's amazing to me. I mean, if people today can do stuff like that, you can see how people believed the infancy gospel stories. It's amazing. There is such a thing as a little too much faith. See, oh, thank you, New Genesis Connection, my favorite theologian. And yes, I would say I am a theologian. I got the PhD in theology. Doesn't matter that I don't believe in a personal God. I love theology. It is so fascinating. Okay, Catherine McCall says, Graham, perhaps it's just part of the plan. Jesus has arranged this ahead of time, and the disciples need to identify that they have been sent for the cult. Well, yeah, that would be like the password. But again, who would he have sent to arrange it? Well, of course, they're not telling us everything, so you can well imagine, I suppose, that he had some other messengers, but could be, yeah. Oh, let's see. How can you speak about Luke without speaking on Herodotus? Well, Herodotus was another ancient historian who believed that mythical entities were real historical figures. And was it he or was it Thucydides who said that when he's telling you what Pericles supposedly said on one occasion, he said, "Naturally, I wasn't there. Don't know anybody who was, but it seems to me, given that what happened, he must have said something like this." And so people debate, well, was Luke more like Herodotus or more like Thucydides? And I think it was more like Stephen King. Okay. Mm. New Genesis connection. We have to admit that the prophecy of Revelation is coming into fruition as we speak at the moment, and we're walking right into the mark of the beast. This is one of my favorite themes, which I have expounded ad nauseum. Some of you will say, "Oh no, not this again." Jacob Neusner really hit the nail on the head in an article he wrote for the Journal of Higher Criticism, where he says that here's the Jewish approach to Scripture. Whether you believe any of these stories happened or not is not quite the point. Like, what does Paul say in Romans? These things were recorded for our benefit. Well, of course. Of course, no one would have written them down otherwise. And Neusner, I don't think he quoted that verse from the New Testament, but he says that you have a set of historical paradigms here to enable you to recognize, or as Jesus says, to discern the signs of the times. The story of Esther, surely that didn't happen. I can tell you the myth that it's probably based on, but the point is, hey, fellow Jews, are you possibly in a situation like this? Don't think we can't be endangered if the wrong person takes a dislike to us. Well, in the same way, to go with the mark of the beast thing and the Antichrist, this takes wisdom. The number of the beast is that of a number of a particular man, and it works out to 666. A is 1, B is 2, etc. You know who I mean. Don't really want to say it out loud, so to speak, but I don't need to. You know who I mean from that. So people have not realized that he was talking about Nero or Domitian. And so they say, okay, whoever it is, we can figure it out because his name will somehow compute to that by hook or by crook. So who has been nominated as the Antichrist? Oh, let's see. King Juan Carlos of Spain. Why? I don't know. Ronald Reagan, because Ronald, 6 letters. Wilson, 6 letters. Reagan, 6 letters. That's not how they did it. Who else? And Mussolini was the Antichrist. Hitler was the Antichrist. Were all these people wrong? Neusner is saying, no, they were all right. It's like the author of 1 John says, you've heard that the Antichrist is coming. Well, I'm here to tell you, there are many Antichrists. Bingo. It's a role that keeps on getting repeatedly filled by a different actor each time the play is performed. And I would say, in agreement with you, this looks familiar to me, this plot. Oh, yeah, this is like the book of Revelation. Well, I don't think this is literally a prediction of what is going to happen one day at the denouement of the whole shebang. No, it's like, get it? This is one of those times. And the thing with the inserted chips and the all of this stuff, the brain implants and all that. Even the vaccine mandates, was that the mark of the beast? Well, yeah, it was yet another version of it. And it's time to realize, if that's what this is, my role is to resist it and not knuckle under. And so, yeah, I do think you're right, though it's not the only real time. This kind of thing happens, like they said in the movie The Omen, when they're down in the cavern underneath Armageddon, the field of Megiddo, where the last battle is to take place. Bugenhagen, the archaeologist, tells the good guys, there's ruins down there. And so, what is this? It's as if the Battle of Armageddon had already happened. And Bugenhagen says, in fact, it has many times and will many times again. That's Neusner. Yeah, this is cyclical. You're going to have this happen every once in a while. Be ready and be prepared to do what the righteous do in a situation like that. So I say yes. I don't believe in actual predictive prophecy, though how do I know, right? I don't dogmatize again it. But yeah, I think this is one of those times, a very serious one. Let's see. Lowrimer, it seems Luke understands Mark and Matthew to attack the apostles' comprehension of Jesus and so many other reactions, like he's just trying to neutralize as much vitriol as possible and fails badly. Yeah, he apparently doesn't feel at liberty to absolutely erase all the stuff. I mean, there is a utility to have Peter and the others get stuff wrong, because it's like Dr. Watson in a Sherlock Holmes story. I say, Holmes, how did you deduce that little Sally was the Shropshire slasher? Elementary, my dear Watson. So-and-so, this and that. Like, the reader's not going to know how Holmes did it unless he tells a character in the story. So, yeah, sometimes you have to have the disciples come up with a well-intended but stupid idea, or say, gee, Lord, I don't get that parable. Well, I'm glad you didn't, because now I can explain it for the benefit of the readers, right? So you're going to find some of that, but the trend you mentioned is certainly there. Luke is a Catholicizing gospel, as F.C. Bauer said. He is living in a time where he is either trying to reconcile the warring factions whose figureheads are Peter and Paul, the Torah Christians versus the Hellenistic Christians, or he is living in a time when such a reconciliation has already been effected. And so what he has to do is to try to polish up their image and minimize the bad opinion that Marcion had and that the Gospel of Mark has of the disciples, just unrelieved stupidity. We can't have that. We revere the 12, but we also like Paul. So let's get everybody together. So they are trying to ameliorate the thing, but they can't completely whitewash it, because they still need the Dr. Watson device. Yeah, so interesting. All this stuff that generations of critical scholars have discovered. Crossover Maniac with a generous donation of 5 smackers, much appreciated. When Jesus makes his triumphant entry into Jerusalem, there's a man with a water pitcher. Do you believe he represents the constellation of Aquarius? I'm not convinced of that. It is pretty striking, and it could be true. In fact, you can come up with a bunch of intriguing parallels, a whole bunch of them. Look at the chapter in the book John Loftus and I put together called Varieties of Jesus Mythicism. This one taking the approach that it's a mythic embellishment on astrology. Certainly the book of Revelation is. So, I mean, could be. I'm not dismissing it, but I tend to think that if there's something to that theory, that you're looking at the germ that germinated into a more elaborate plant. There's a whole lot more going on, all the moral instruction and stuff, but it might have stemmed from that, like the lots of the Old Testament characters and stories did. They certainly are just narratized, personified adventures of the heavenly bodies, like Halal, the Venus, the morning star, how it rises in the morning to be the brightest object in the sky, saying, I will ascend to the sides of the north, and so forth. But then, when you know it, God shows up, and it's supposed to be the sun, and you can't even see Venus anymore. But they make this into a story. That's or the Abraham and Isaac thing. Why is Abe trying to kill his son Ike? Well, because Abraham, the father of many, is the moon, the father of all the stars. But Isaac, he laughs, is he who sits in the heavens laughs. The sun, he beams. And so at some point, this was a kind of an astrological or astronomical allegory. This is what happens every day. The moon would like to get rid of the sun and rule the skies permanently, but he can never do it because every time he hopes for the best, here comes the sun. Darn it. So maybe we'll try again this evening. Might originally have been that way with Mark. Could be. Or as they say in cartoons, could be. Let's see. New Genesis Connection following up on Revelation. She says, yes, but you will not be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast, and we are walking into worldwide digital currency, and they can cut your bank account off just because. Amen, sister. You are exactly right. Now, this may not be the end of the world. It hasn't been all the other times, but it's an instructive parallel. It's an alarm going off. You see what these developments mean, what they can turn into? That's something people must not dismiss. Catherine says, yes, wait a minute, wrong one. The mark of the beast is like saying winter is coming. Like the sign of the times, right? You see certain things happening, like it says in Mark 13. Learn the lesson from the fig tree. As soon as the leaves come out, you know spring is on its way. I mean, there's no way it's not going to blossom if it's gone this far. So you know the season is about to begin. Has it ever not done that? It has to do that. So you can be sure that when these signs appear, it's at the door. It's happening next. Of course, it didn't, but that's the idea. And that would be the case here. Not necessarily that the end is coming, but big trouble is coming. Right. I think that's the last comment for today. But it has been an hour, so I guess I will be seeing you at 6 for the Bible Geek. How exciting. And I'll see you.